In this video, I want to look at the watch windows in Visual Studio. To do that, I'm going to use this project using the watch windows. Let's start by looking at the UI in main-window.xaml. This contains two buttons, which I'll use for debugging the application, and also contains a calendar control. Keep that in mind for later. I'll run the application by pressing F5 to attach a debugger, and then I'll click on this first button, Watch Windows. I'll step through the code and get to this line of code here where I've declared the variable markup %. Now, one way you can add a watch is by clicking on the item and choosing this Quick Watch. Quick Watch is a modal dialog that pops up and shows me the values of this greeting variable. Now, the problem with this, it's an older technology and you can't switch back to your code unless you close this window. So Microsoft added to Visual Studio the data tip. Now, I talked about the data tip in earlier videos. That's where you can hover over a variable and see the value that's stored in there. What I want to talk about instead is these watch windows down here. By adding a watch window, I can keep an eye on the variable without having to hover over the item all the time. There's several ways to do that. One is I can right-click and choose Add Watch. Another way is to grab the variable with my mouse and drag it down here and drop it in the watch window. Let me add this one here too. As you can see, I can watch the data without having to hover over it. If it's a complex object like the book, I can click on the plus sign to open it up and read more about it. I can also change values. I notice that the greeting string is wrong, so I'm going to click here, double click on it, and then change this value. Now, if I hover over the greeting here in the data tip, you'll see that it's correctly matching what I entered in the watch window. Next, I'm going to step into this line of code, and I want you to see what happens on markup % and what happens to the greeting line. Press F11 to step one line of code. Hello turns to black, and 2.5 turns to red. That's how the watch windows tells you what the most recent change is in the watch window. So I can quickly see which item changed when I move through a line of code. You're not stuck with just items in your code. Remember that calendar control? That's part of my window. I can come down here and type in this, which represents the current window, dot main calendar, and then hit enter. Now I've added that calendar control and I can investigate properties on the calendar control. You can also work with .NET classes like the system.io.directory class. I can bring that down here. And then I can call methods on that class. I could call the create directory class here if I wanted to, or read information like find out if a file exists. To remove an item from the watch list, you just hit the delete key. If you want to clear out the entire watch window, right-click and choose Clear All. I'll press F5 to continue running the application, and then I'll click on this Add More Watch Windows. You can have up to 4 watch windows on the bottom of your screen. You get the extra watch windows by going to Debug, Windows, and then choosing Watch. I'll add a second watch window, and then I'll drag this book variable down there. Step through my code, get to this point. I haven't instantiated the book yet. Next, I'm going to talk about another class that I have called the Bookstore class. And this is a class that I wrote that's got a static method called getTopSeller, and it has a method called updateBookPrice. What I want to show you is that you can call these methods from the watch window. So I'll switch back to main window.cs, and then I'll come down here and I'll type in bookseller. I'm going to use the keystroke from Visual Studio called Control Spacebar to finish typing that. And then I'm going to call my getTopSeller, open and close parens, and that returns a book. So I can click on this to see the results of that book that was returned from that method. Next, I'm going to try to call another method on this bookstore class. This time I did Control Spacebar and I didn't have a unique match, so I have to choose from this list, dot update book price. And I'm going to pass in my book that I have an instance of in my code and the new price percentage increase, 1.02 decimal. And I'll press the Enter key, and I got an exception. I don't know if you can see that, but it says it threw an exception. The reason it threw an exception is because book is currently null. So let me step through this one line of code, and then what I want to do is rerun that method. The way you can do that is by clicking on this circular arrows here. This will reevaluate the expression. So I click here, And it says, okay, successfully ran that and updated it. I can also do the same with this one. If I want to get the new top seller, I can click here to refresh that method. Watch windows are yet another way to monitor data during a debugging session.